Quality Indian Constitution. From historical underpinnings. Britishers came to India in 1608 as traders in the form of East India Company. They had political power behind it of the British state. EIC could use force to defend English interests if there were needed. 3. EIC could sign treaties with local Indian rulers. Queen Elizabeth I gave EIC charter, exclusive license or monopoly to trade. Britishers won Battle of Buxar. The Battle of Buxar was a significant military engagement that took place on 22nd October 1764, near the town of Buxar in present-day Bihar, India. It was a key event in Indian colonial history, marking a decisive victory for the British East India Company over a coalition of Indian rulers. After winning, they got Diwani rights, i.e., civil revenue and tax collection rights of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Robert Clive became first governor of Bengal. Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor, granted the Diwani rights to EIC. Upon getting Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, EIC should have made profits, but the company was going in debt. But officers of the company were getting rich due to rampant corruption and gross mismanagement of funds. EIC went to British government for help because of huge debt. The British government said that we will give you loan, but in return, the British government will pass laws to control the functioning of the EIC. The British Parliament will make laws to control EIC. British Parliament started passing regulating acts or charter acts to regulate the affairs and to control EIC. This will be done by revising the terms and conditions of charter, i.e., exclusive license, every 20 years. Before 1773, the system of governance in India was decentralized, i.e., there were 3 different zones of power, which were Madras, Bombay, and Kolkata. Each of these zones had their own governors, and each of these 3 zones had their own executive and legislative power and were independent from one another. Starting with Regulating Act of 1773. By this act, for the first time, the legislative powers of Governor of Bombay and legislative powers of Governor of Madras started going to Governor of Bengal. This was the first step of centralization of power in India. Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. 2. First Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. This act provided the groundwork for India's centralized administration. 4. EIC was made accountable and answerable and had to give account of every single penny. 5. Court of Directors governing body of EIC will inform about all the monetary affairs to British Parliament. 6. No member of EIC will be allowed to do private trade and take bribes or gift from natives. 7. Supreme Court was established in 1773 with 4 judges with Sir Elijah Impey as Chief Justice. Executive responsibility. To assist Governor General, a 4-member Executive Council was formed. But this Executive Council also performed legislative functions. Here, it was executive supremacy. Why the Regulating Act of 1773 failed? 1. There was no clear demarcation that what Governor General can do and what can the 4-member Executive Council do. There was always conflict between them. 2. It was also not clear that what Supreme Court can do and what can the 4-member Executive Council can do. 3. There was no separation of powers in this act. EIC did not cooperate with this Regulating Act of 1773. Amending Act of 1781. This was required to correct the drawbacks of the Regulating Act of 1773. Aim: to define relationship between the Supreme Court and the Governor-General in Council. Before there was a misunderstanding about the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. There was also conflict between the Supreme Court and the Governor-General jurisdiction. It exempted the Governor-General and the Council from the jurisdiction of Supreme Court for the acts carried out by them in their official capacity. Pitt's India Act of 1784. Aim: to control EIC, which was not happening after the Regulating Act of 1773. This act distinguished between the political, administrative, and commercial functions of EIC. British Parliament created a new body called Board of Control, which will look after political, administrative, and military functions of EIC, whereas the Court of Directors will look after all the commercial functions of the EIC. After Significance of Pitt's India Act. The British government gained direct control over Indian administration and the EIC became subordinate to the government. The company territories in India were for the first time called British possessions in India. Thus, it established a system of double government. This act established the British Crown's authority in the civil, military, and administration of Indian territories through Board of Control, but the commercial activities remained a monopoly of the EIC, controlled by Court of Directors. Pitt's India Act of 1784 was also not successful because 1. Due to lack of clarity regarding the limits of companies' power and British government's authority. 2. The Governor-General had to navigate the competing interests of EIC and British Crown, making governance difficult. The Act made companies subordinate to the British government, unlike previous Regulating Act of 1773, where the British government only sought to regulate matters and not take over.